The knock on my front door came at exactly 8:17 on a Saturday evening. I almost ignored it. The rain had been pounding against my windows for hours. And I wasn't expecting anyone. My dinner was getting cold, my old Labrador was asleep at my feet. And I had finally convinced myself that some chapters of life were meant to stay closed. Then the knocking came again. Harder this time. When I opened the door, every thought in my head disappeared. Emily stood on my porch wearing a wedding dress soaked by the rain. Her mascara had run down her cheeks. Her expensive heels were in one hand. Her engagement ring was missing. The woman who had once broken my heart, the powerful CEO everyone admired. The woman who was supposed to be saying, "I do." Less than an hour earlier, looked straight into my eyes. "I left my own wedding," she whispered. I couldn't speak. She took one shaky step closer. "I drove here because I choose you." For a long moment, neither of us moved. 9 years. 9 years since we'd ended everything. 9 years since she'd chosen ambition over love. 9 years since she'd walked away believing success would make the loneliness worth it. I had spent those years rebuilding a life from scratch. Not an extraordinary life. Just an honest one. I taught high school history in a small town outside Chicago. I lived in a modest house. My neighbors knew my name. On weekends I volunteered at a community food pantry. Because someone had once done the same for my family when we had nothing. Life wasn't glamorous. But it was peaceful. Emily looked nothing like the confident executive who appeared on magazine covers. She looked frightened. "I know I don't deserve to be here," she said. "If you tell me to leave, I will." I finally found my voice. "You'd better come inside before you catch pneumonia." She laughed through her tears. That laugh sounded exactly the way I remembered. I handed her a towel while my dog, Charlie, walked over and gently rested his head against her hand. "He still likes me," she whispered. "He always did." She knelt beside Charlie and cried. Not the quiet tears people cry in public. The kind that come from years of pretending everything is fine. After several minutes, she looked up. "I almost married the wrong man today." I sat across from her without saying anything. She continued. "Actually, that's not true." Her voice trembled. "I almost married someone I never truly loved." Silence filled the room. "I kept telling myself love wasn't enough," she said. "I thought respect, influence, money, and shared ambition would make a stronger marriage. And they don't." She stared at her hands. "This morning something happened." I waited. On the way to the ceremony, our driver stopped because an elderly man had collapsed on the sidewalk. She smiled sadly. I wanted to get out and help. "What stopped you?" "My fiance." She closed her eyes. "He said we couldn't be late because reporters were waiting." The room felt colder. The driver wanted to call an ambulance. "What happened?" "He was told to keep driving." I frowned. "You left?" She nodded. "But first I looked back through the window." Her voice cracked. "I saw a young delivery driver pull over, kneel beside that stranger, take off his own jacket, and stay with him." She swallowed hard. I realized a complete stranger had more compassion than the man I was about to marry. I leaned forward. "Did the men survive?" "Yes." Relief washed across her face. The ambulance arrived a few minutes later. She smiled faintly. But I couldn't stop thinking about that delivery driver. She looked directly at me. "Do you know why?" I shook my head. "Because he reminded me of you." I looked away. Years earlier, Emily used to tease me because I couldn't walk past someone who needed help. I'd stop for flat tires, carry groceries, volunteer after storms, donate blood whenever I could. She loved that about me once. Until promotions, board meetings, and billion-dollar deals slowly convinced her that kindness was a distraction. "I thought success meant becoming untouchable," she said. "I learned today it means becoming unreachable." She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. Inside were dozens of photographs. Pictures I hadn't seen in years. Us volunteering at animal shelters. Serving Thanksgiving dinners. Building wheelchair ramps. Teaching kids to read. You kept these. I never threw them away. She smiled weakly. I told everyone they were memories from another life. She paused. They were actually memories from the only life where I truly felt alive. I didn't know what to say. Because the truth was, I'd never stopped loving her. But love alone wasn't enough anymore. You hurt me, I finally said. I know. You didn't just leave. I know. You made me believe I wasn't enough. She nodded while tears streamed down her face. I've replayed that conversation thousands of times. I remembered every word. You deserve someone who dreams bigger, she'd told me. Back then, I thought she meant bigger houses. Bigger salaries. Bigger cities. Now I wondered if she'd really meant bigger hearts. I was wrong, she whispered. No. She looked confused. You weren't wrong about one thing. What? We wanted different lives. She lowered her head. I know. I wanted a family. I know. I wanted evenings together. I know. I wanted to measure success by the people we helped. She cried harder. I know. I can't erase 9 years. You don't have to. She looked up. What? You can't erase them. Another silence settled between us. Finally, she asked the question that had probably terrified her the entire drive. Is there someone else? I smiled gently. No. She closed her eyes in relief. But that doesn't mean everything goes back to the way it was. I understand. You'll have to earn trust. I will. You'll have to show me today's decision wasn't just fear. It wasn't. She reached into her bag again. This time she removed her phone. She opened a document. I resigned. I stared. What? I resigned yesterday. Yesterday. I already knew. Knew what? That I couldn't keep living the life I'd built. She laughed softly. I just didn't know where I'd end up. I shook my head in disbelief. You walked away from everything. No. She smiled. I walked toward something. Over the next few weeks, the headlines exploded. America's most celebrated CEO abandons luxury wedding. Millions speculated. No one knew the truth. The truth wasn't about romance. It was about awakening. Emily quietly sold one of her vacation homes. She created scholarships for first-generation college students. She funded local shelters without putting her name on the buildings. Every Saturday she joined me at the food pantry. The first day, nobody recognized her. An elderly woman thanked her for carrying groceries to her car. Emily cried the entire drive home. No board meeting has ever made me feel like that, she admitted. Months passed. One afternoon, a teenage volunteer asked us how we'd met. Emily smiled. I made the biggest mistake of my life. The teenager looked confused. And then, I was lucky enough to get a second chance. I laughed. You skipped an important part. What part? You forgot to mention you broke my heart. She grinned. I was hoping you'd forget. Never. She nudged my shoulder. I'll spend the rest of my life making up for it. 1 year later, we stood together in another church. There were no television cameras. No celebrity guests. No luxury decorations. The flowers came from neighbors' gardens. The music was played by local students. Instead of expensive wedding favors, we donated meals to families in need in every guest's name. When the pastor asked why we wanted to marry, Emily didn't read the vows she'd prepared. Instead, she looked at everyone in the room. I spent years believing the most valuable thing a person could build was a company. She turned toward me. I was wrong. She took my hands. The most valuable thing anyone can build is a life where people feel seen, loved, and never left behind. There wasn't a dry eye in the church. Later that evening, Charlie lay beside us as the sun disappeared beyond the trees. Emily rested her head on my shoulder. Do you ever think about what would've happened if you hadn't opened the door that night? I smiled. I do. And I think someone else would have needed help. She looked puzzled. I would have opened the door anyway. She laughed. Even after everything. Especially after everything. Because kindness isn't reserved for strangers. Forgiveness isn't given because someone deserves it. Sometimes it's offered because carrying bitterness is heavier than carrying hope. Emily squeezed my hand. I almost married the man who had everything. I kissed her forehead. No. She looked at me. You almost married the man who had everything except the one thing that matters. And what's that? A heart that chooses people before success. Years later, people still asked about the wedding she never finished. They expected a dramatic story about romance. Instead, we always told them the truth. The happiest marriage didn't begin when a bride ran away from the altar. It began the moment two imperfect people realized that real wealth isn't measured by titles, power, or bank accounts. It's measured by the lives you lift, the hands you hold when no one is watching, and the courage to choose kindness, even when the world tells you to choose everything else.